Good morning, PhreakNIC. Everyone sleep well? Everyone well hydrated? Have some food? So, I'm gonna get things started off. My name is poiupoiu. So, thank you for coming to my talk of WSUS, more like WSucks. Lessons learned from setting up and running a WSUS in a standalone network. So, before I get started though, I do want to say there is an update. WSUS is deprecated as of September 20th, 2024. Deprecated, not depreciated. Very different. Irks me when people say it. What does deprecation mean? Deprecation refers to the stage in the product lifecycle when a feature or functionality is no longer in active development. Blah, 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 blah. Microsoft will continue to to ensure that existing WSUS features work, and we will address issues as they arise. However, we do not plan to invest any new features going forward. They haven't invested new features in WSUS for years, and you will see. WSUS, however, was included with Windows Server 2025. 2025 server has support for about 10 years. So, Microsoft's solution going forward, just use Azure. But in a standalone environment, this doesn't work. So, ultimately though, what does this mean for my talk? It means this talk is still relevant. So, who am I? I've been AV director for a couple of PhreakNICs now. PhreakNIC 18, I think. I think I did something with that. The last couple of years, I have trading cards in the capture the flag. It just really means that I have a tub of video recording crap. I have extension cables, I have HDMI cables, I have adapters, I have all kinds of adapters. I have given talks about Kdenlive and video editing, FFmpeg, btrfs.
Fun fact, btrfs I think is the most viewed talk on the PhreakNIC.
Yes.
It's like 32,000.
Something like that, and I have made the mistake of reading the comments. I have made the mistake, and everyone's like, this guy's using dark mode in Windows, what's wrong with him? Why is he showing off btrfs on a Windows machine? Because I'm using a virtual machine, you idiot, and I made a very stupid mistake the night before and completely trashed my entire OS. So I was running on maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep at that time. Last year before, I gave a talk about creating our own Windows ISOs. Also lessons that I learned from my job. I am an important IT nerd for my job. And ultimately, I manage a network that cannot touch the internet. So I'll go into more details about that. But one more tangent. If you have not signed up to play Jeopardy and you want to play, please sign up. The more people that sign up, the more fun it is going to be. I promise you. No one wants to be on no one wants to have a competition of one team. That's lame. We're better than that. So if you have not registered for Jeopardy and you want to, there's your QR code. There's also a couple QR codes floating around on the outside of the doors. So, getting back to the talk. Why would this be a good idea? So WSUS is a handy way to run your own update server at home. You can bring the cloud home. You can update as many systems as needed without exposing them to the internet. In a standalone environment, this is ideal. If you have one Windows machine, that's easy. You just download the cumulative updates, you download your patches, you're good to go. 2 or 3 machines. Okay, it gets more complicated. What about 30? What about 50? What about 100? What about 1,000? On a system that cannot touch the internet. How are you going to do that? You're going to go to every single one? No, that's dumb. We should be smart about this. Now, why is WSUS a bad idea? The initial synchronization can take forever. If you mess it up, if you click the wrong options, it will take days. I kid you not, days. And you will see why. The initial database has references to Windows XP. XP. Vista was released in November of 2006. Vista is not in the initial database. So you have to catch up updates from the last 20 plus years. WSUS service is single-threaded. Do you know how annoying that is? You can throw as many Threadrippers, Epics, you can throw as many Xeons as you want at it. It won't do anything. It's going to say, I'm doing everything I can. CPU usage, 10%. and it's just sitting there. So in a case with like Epics and Xeon, or a lot with the Xeons in particular, they have many cores but a low single thread clock speed, which means you're going to be sitting there for a long time. You can use there's a built-in WSUS export command. However, and ask me how I know, if you are missing one of these updates files from your isolated on your isolated WSUS server, it's going to say, hey, I'm going to go download this for you, and just sit there, and it won't do anything. It gets into this cycle where it's saying, I'm missing an update. I need the update. Okay, I'm going to go out to Windows, and it will not serve any more updates. It will not say, hey, I'm going to go do everything I can. No, it's WSUS. It sucks. So, for my network at work, I have an external facing Windows server. This one's virtualized so I can take it around, do all the things, running in WSUS. Then I have an isolated network server that is Active Directory domain controller that manages NTP and manages my group policy. I also have another WSUS server running WSUS, or another Windows server running WSUS. And then I have a bunch of Windows clients. If nothing blows up, I will do some demonstrations today, and I will have a single WSUS, or a single Windows server that's running both Active Directory and WSUS on it, and then another Windows 11 client. So the general workflow of WSUS is you're going to go in and you're going to select the categories and products. If you do not do this, you're going to be sitting waiting for days while it does its updates, its initial synchronization. Once that's done, then you say, because remember, this has the initial database has XP at the highest. It doesn't have Vista. What about Windows Vista? What about Windows Windows 11, Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows 8? It doesn't have any of that. So you're going back, have to get all this. So the initial thing is to configure minimal products, do initial synchronization with Microsoft servers, then go back, modify these categories to what you really want. And then, what about the second synchronize? Well, then you do another synchronize. Then from there, you should have everything you need. You go in and apply your updates, WSUS. Now keep in mind, this is on the internet-facing one. Download all your updates. You can do a cleanup, delete extra files as you need to, export this database off, copy the actual files off. No need to carry over deletions. And then on the internal side, you import this database, delete extra files, copy updates, and you point other clients to it, and then profit. Then that's whenever the fun starts happening. So I will do a quick demo of now setting up a WSUS server, the initial synchronization, selecting updates, approving, what it kind of all looks like. Come on. Oh, awesome. Okay, there we go. Good deal, good. Woo! Had me worried there. All right. So, this virtual machine that you're going to see right here, this has already installed Windows Server on it, and that's kind of blurry. Ooh, I know how to use a computer. That was awesome. So once you actually get Windows Server installed, it'll come up with this awesome interface. You can say manage, add roles and features, and it brings up this amazing GUI. Say I want a role-based server selection. I want to select myself, server roles, and then all the way down at the bottom there's this Windows Server update services. You say check it. Yes, I want all the other required and dependent services. Next. Cool. Next. 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 From here you can say, I want to install this to like my C/WSUS. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. All right, more options. All right, cool. You can say restart the destination server if required. All right, now you hit install, and it's gonna go off, and it's gonna do its own thing for a little bit. It might take a little bit, depends on how much clock speed you have on your single threads. Because remember, WSUS sucks. Now, through the magic of virtual machines, I already have a couple things done. So by a quick show of hands, how many people actually do have to do some kind of network management for Windows machines in this for work? Okay, yeah. Okay. Running. Done. All right, so let me go back to the console. All right, so through the magic of television, we have installed WSUS. There's one or two more options you have to do after the fact. From here you see, this has completed its synchronization. Under my options, products and classifications, I have unchecked just about everything except for, I think, whenever someone comes on to my team and I start giving them this task of, all right, you're going to be managing updates, I always preface with, and remember, WSUS sucks. So, all right. So it does all of its updates. You can see I only have Exchange 2000 installed, or only Exchange 2000. So they're very minimal updates. Cool. So now we go under our updates, and we say all of our updates. And this is such a handy UI. I'm going to change, we are filtering in this case, any except declined, and we're going to look for any status. And another feature that they don't typically do is you right click on here, there's a supersedence. And remember, WSUS sucks, so it will not automatically refresh, so you have to manually refresh it. This is UI from like XP time. It's awesome. All right, so now we got this little hierarchy right here. This is our supersedence. So you might not be able to see that, but there is like a blue dot on top of 3 dots. That means that that is the most up-to-date according to the synchronization information it has. There's this other one down here that has a gray dot and then 1 blue dot, 2 gray dots. It means that this was the lowest level. It's been superseded by a future update and going on from there. This one, it doesn't know what it's doing because we're also, remember, WSUS sucks. So we're having to get updates from years ago. And if Microsoft did not put that in there, then here we are. So very simply, we say, I want to include this update. I don't want to include these updates here that are superseded. So I'm just going to hit here, right click, approve. Now you can say, if you have a domain, if this WSUS is part of a domain, you can specify different organization units. So you can have one for your test environment. You can have one for prod. You can have one for just stupid users. And you can update just their machines. Or you can just hit all computers, approve or install. Very easy. Okay, cool. So once this is all said and done, it's then going to download the updates as it needs to. You can monitor that by clicking on the actual server, and right here, downloading updates. Updates needing files, 2 for 111 megabytes. Cool. This guy does not have internet, so it's just going to sit here going, yep, I'm doing it. So some of the other things you can do in here is under options, there is this server cleanup wizard. This can be kind of handy because if you want to delete information about computers that haven't contacted the server in 30 days or more, there's a checkbox for it. That's easy. Unused updates, you can automatically clean out superseded updates. So declined updates that have not been approved for 30 days or more and are not currently needed by any clients and are superseded by an approved update. Yeah, you don't want to update the cumulative update from October of 2025 whenever it's November 2025. Yeah, it makes no sense to have that. Let's get rid of it. Let's free up some space. Okay. All right. I hit the wrong button. Bear with me, guys. Sorry. Okay. All right, so here we are. All right, so the overall workflow of doing this, though, is you select your minimal. Like I said, we have demonstrated this part, all the way down to cleaning up and deleting extra files. Exporting the database, and copying the files off. Now, that's what I'm going to talk about now. The built-in command, WSUS util, it can import and export your package.cab file. However, WSUS sucks. So once it starts compressing all of the information about all the updates, once it hits 2 gigabytes, it'll go, I hit 2 gigabytes, I can't do any more. Only after it processes 2 gigabytes. So the solution is to compress it. And it uses the gzip compression. So I'll let you guys make that connection, that a Microsoft tool for a Microsoft service on a Microsoft server on a Microsoft application is better with gzip.
Good buddy.
So,
Proving legacy to the 1990s.
yes, as you said, proving legacy going back to the 1990s. So, once you have this compressed, you want to copy these updates over and then import on the standalone environment. Cool. So, on the left side, we have our, just kind of help demonstrate this. Well, on the left side, we have updates without supersedence, and then on our right side, or I'm sorry, our left side, we have the internet-facing computer server. On the right side, we have our isolated one. What we don't want to happen is we say October 25 superseded updates, they're in here. All right, they get copied over, cool. Update cycle, November. Okay, we deleted them off of this server, but if we just copy them over, copy the entire directory over, we're going to have some extra files. All right, 1 or 2 months, not a big deal. What about again? And again. Fortunately, Microsoft has a built-in tool that many people, I didn't know about existed until I started dealing with this. It's called RoboCopy. So if you've never used RoboCopy, there's a /mir mirror. It's similar to rsync's -P and -PA and delete. It'll just say, I'm going to take the files from this directory, mirror them over here. Whatever's deleted on here, I'll delete over here. That's cool. It's built into Windows. Awesome. It cannot do SSH, whereas rsync can SSH like a boss. So sorry, I do sometimes go off on tangents on some cool tools, but it is what it is. So, like I said, the reason I really ran into this was on my internet-facing WSUS. I downloaded everything, robocopied everything over. Great, cool. On my standalone WSUS, took everything in. All right, everything should be fine. And then it said, hey, I'm missing updates. Let me go download that for that. The disconnect about all of this was on the individual updates. Whenever I imported the database into the standalone one, those updates were still marked approved. So the standalone system has updates approved that I do not have updates filed for. So now our standalone WSUS is sitting there spinning its thumbs because WSUS sucks. I have a disconnect. Fortunately, I found this GitHub called WSUS Import Export Manager. This is super slick because whenever you go to export, it'll actually connect to your local database on your internet-facing system, export the database, copy the files off to another location, like an external hard drive or a network mount or anything like that. Copies up configuration for the individual updates. So all of your, whenever I went into the thing a little bit ago and said, this update, I'm going to approve it. It'll actually query the database on your system and say, oh, this update, KB blah, 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 is approved. I'm going to make a note of that and then whenever you go to import it on the other side, it'll say, oh, this KB, blah, 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 that's approved. Cool. So it also will drop the database as selected, which is default, import database, copy update files, re-index the WSucks, and applies configuration of these individual updates. Awesome. This is what I need. And because it's Microsoft based, there's an XML for it. So it really isn't too bad. So you can say on the, this is in the configuration file. They say action, we have our enabled here, which is false for the import. So obviously this is our export. But you say location, WSucks content enabled true. WSucks metadata, so this is our XML of the actual updates themselves, and then our WSucks config. This file here contains all of the individual updates that are marked approved. This is what's going to keep your system from doing that. Likewise, on the import XML, so that was the import export, it's very similar. It's just marked as enabled equals true versus enabled equals false. This isn't bad. This is pretty easy. So that's cool. That's pretty cool. So now we got our Windows updates. But what else can we do with it? We're hackers. Well, let's do something cool with it. Years ago, Microsoft actually opened up the API for WSUS. For everyone's work office, they probably have to do some kind of SCCM. You know, hey, you have new updates. Okay, well that's cool. What do they use? They use the WSUS API to do this. Cool. However, it requires a Windows SQL server. So let's just embed ourselves more. Let's spend more money to do all that. The goal of all of my talks is to teach you guys something that any of you can go out, ideally, possibly today, and start what we're doing with little to no cost. And I hate licensing. I hate it. Don't get me started on on Cisco systems and Adobe. I hate them. So there's this other package out here called WSUS Package Publisher that I found. Couple issues. If it's not connected to the internet, it typically won't work unless you apply this registry timestamping. This is documented on one of their releases. They say on the last release, they said we added this feature that if you disable timestamping at the registry, it'll be cool. So the process with this is we can now create our own cert, copy this, and import this into your client systems, your Windows systems. Put it in your trusted publishers and your trusted root certificate authorities. What this means is we can now create our own updates with Blackjack and hookers. So I will do just that now, with demonstrating that. So, process is not too bad. It's a little convoluted at first, but once you, so like I said, the process of creating your own update is a little convoluted, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. And then there are ways of exporting your created updates onto the local drive. So then whenever you go to do a future update, it will, you can actually import the old update and just go. So here's the UI for WSUS Package Publisher. It's also kind of janky, kind of old. But I want to connect to the local database. And right here, we say, we don't have anything, cool. So we want to create an update. And just for demonstrations, I was using, I think, PuTTY, just because it's very quick, it's very easy, it's open source. Or maybe not open source, but it's easy out there. So here's our PuTTY 64-bit installer for 0.83. All right, it says, hey, look, there I am. Good on y'all. Next. So if you have an MSI, it will automatically pull in information about the vendor, the title, and some other stuff. Cool. If you do a .exe, so like any application, I think Notepad++, you know, that has a the setup is at exe. Well, you need to do a silent install on things, otherwise it's going to pop up say, do you want to hit next? Yes, that's why I'm doing all this. So at the bottom down here, you can actually specify, you know, /S to invoke the silent install on it. For the MSIs, typically you don't need to, but we do need to give it a description and a product name. All right, so now we got next. All right, so this first part, this first window here, in my opinion, it seems a little backwards. This window here says, indicate here the rule or rules that allow client computers to determine if the update is already installed. And so we can say, let's say our rule type is going to be if the file version is here. I'm going to add this rule. File path is C:/program files putty.exe. It's just the path that's executable. And we can say our file version, if we want to check and see if this is installed, is 0.83. And say if it's greater than or equal to. This is the rule that says, does this rule need to be executed? Does this update need to be installed? Okay, cool. I'm gonna copy that path real quick. All right, next. This is the rule determine if the update is installable, if this is applicable at all. So typically with this one, I then say if the file exists. If you want to, you can say if C:/page file.sys exists. You can say whatever you want. If Notepad at all is installed, if a file that just says install putty.txt file that's 0 kilobytes is available, says, hey, I'm going to go ahead and process this. But not everyone needs it, so I'll just keep it as the putty executable. All right, I hit next, publish. So from here, it's going to actually import it into, or it's going to create a cab file and digitally sign it and get all this information to it. For larger updates, this does take a little bit longer, but for smaller ones, like for putty, it's pretty quick. Okay, our update has been published. So now, hey, look at that. Under our updates, we got putty. Here it is. Cool. So very similar to like the WSUS console, we can right-click and we can approve it. We can decline it. We can create a superseding update. We can revise it. We can do all this stuff. Awesome. So that's the general process of using this to create your own updates. All right. One second, please. All right. So that's still cool, but we're running in Windows. How can we make this easier for all of ourselves? How can we be smarter about this? How can we mentally hack this process? We're on a domain. How can we leverage this? And the answer is Active Directory. Through the group policy, we can very easily take this the cert file that we created with WSUS Package Publisher and apply it. And then we can also, through the group policy, create one policy then that will say, I want to change where I'm creating these updates, my third party, to my WSUS server. Oh, and by the way, I'm also going to put that cert in there for all machines. I'm going to change the settings. I want to check every hour. I want to check it maybe every 3 days. I want to prevent it from trying to go out to the internet. So group policy can be pretty handy when it works right. So with that, I will go ahead and switch back to my VMs. Oop, not that one. So I'm now switching back to a previous snapshot of Windows Server that's been run, that has this PuTTY, the PuTTY import, or PuTTY update created and configured, and running as a Windows server, or a Windows domain. And then I have another machine that is a Windows 11 machine that is coming back up now, that has been added to this domain. So it has an old version of PuTTY installed on it, and I'm going to go very quickly through. All right, so like I talked about, this is inside of the OU, or I'm sorry, inside of the group policy. I've created a policy, and I said I'm creating a, I've taken my WSucks package publisher cert file, and I'm applying it across the domain, putting my trusted publishers here, as well as my trusted root certificate authorities, my WPP self-signed. At the same time, I'm also under admin templates, Windows components, scrolling all the way down, Windows update. I'm saying, which one? Not there. All right. Manage updates offered from Windows Server Update Service. I'm going to specify my intranet Microsoft Update Service location. So this is pointing to my, in this case, this is what's going to, all of the Windows 11 systems, or Windows 10, or Windows 7, Windows XP, all the systems that are being included in the domain, they're going to inherit this group policy, and they're all going to get at this. I'm going to say allow signed updates from a intranet service and specify my location. So if those, they're there. All right. I've labeled this as my WPP group policy. So I'm going to now link that existing GPO. All right, so now this policy is active on my domain. I'm going to jump back over to this guy. And this is just, like I said, just a Windows 11 machine. Like everything, GPO update force, let that run through. Cool. So, like I said, just for demonstration purposes, I got my installed apps. That's not right. Oh, here we are. Yeah, PuTTY, this is running 0.77 installed. Not a big deal. We're going to take care of that. All right, so our update, the group policy has been completed successfully. Woo! Check for updates. It's going to sit there. It's going to say, hey, query the update service, or the WSUS server. It's going to ask about it. Do you have any updates for me? At the moment, no, because the virtual machine we just rolled back to has the PuTTY update has the PuTTY update created but not approved. So this will say, yep, you're good to go. That doesn't help me any. Awesome. So like I said, right here, PuTTY update to 0.83, status is not approved. But also, if we go over here, we can say, all computers, hey, this has information on me. Cool. There's other fun things you can do with a package publisher and say what all systems need this update stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this update now. Say approve for installation. Cool. Here we are. We are now approved on the WSUS package publisher. So let's switch back over to the Windows 10 client. Here we are. We're up to date. Now let's check for updates again. I know it's like, oh, PuTTY, woo, okay, but what about Firefox? What about Chrome? What about Notepad? What about Nmap? What about all these other services, all these programs that you could use apply this to. You can have all these updates available on one WSUS server. And based off of if they currently have it installed, it'll update it. If not, okay, cool, it'll just let it go. Hey, look at that. Updates are available. So now, my server is my Windows 11 system, Windows 10 system, whatever it is, 11, is communicating with my WSUS server, downloading it, and going to install it. Again, for one machine, this is way overkill. For two machines, this is a little overkill. But once you get into 30 machines, once you get into 50, once you get to 100 machines, this is absolute game changer. So like how I have it set up at my workplace, we'll do a scan. We'll say, oh, we need a new version of XYZ. Oh, there's a major vulnerability that we need to apply for. Okay, well, throw it in the WSUS package publisher. Within 2 to 3 hours, we have mitigated it across our entire network. And again, this is a standalone system. We're not going out to this other, we're not going out to whatever. We control the updates. So if there's even an exe that we want to run across the entire domain, we'll throw it in WSUS package publisher. Say, if the Windows System 32 NTO kernel, if that is in the machine, if that's on the machine, this is applicable. So it'll apply to every Windows machine. So we can run an executable. We can run whatever we want. All right, so it says PuTTY was installed. Let's double check that. All right, installed apps, and here we are. PuTTY.83 installed. The date's wrong, but whatever. But we now have updated this. Just a simple one. All right. So, there we go. Okay. So now, finishing this up. The WSucksometer, the initial synchronization. Why does WSUS suck so much? The initial synchronization is a pain in the butt. It can take forever. WSUS, the internal Windows internal database, single-threaded. It is single-threaded, y'all. Like I said, Microsoft has not pushed new updates and new performance, and this is why. It's single-threaded, going back to XP. Why? The database size limitation, where gzip is a lot better than uncompressed. The initial importing the database. If you have a large enough database, we will say, all right, cool, it is 3 o'clock, it's noon. All right, let's import the updates. All right, walk away. We'll come back next morning, and it'll be about done. So it depends on your database. If it's like 1 or 2 products, okay, it might take pretty quick. If it is a large selection, including like Office, including different versions of Windows 10 or Windows 11, and 24H2 is a different version than like 22H2. They are different versions. They are different updates. They have different updates across the board. If you have an approved update and not the update file, it'll download it for you. If you're not on an internet-facing network, it does you nothing. It will not serve updates beyond that. So, another WSUS sucks. Publishing your own updates is not built in and requires third-party applications. Even the SCCM, which is owned by Microsoft and uses Microsoft Server and Microsoft SQL and all this other stuff, you still have to pay out the nose for it. And ultimately, you need WSUS Server OS to implement all of this. So, overall, WSUS does suck. However, if you have to do it, there are ways to get around it and make it a little bit better for everyone. So with that, are there any questions? Seeing nothing? Cool. So if you want to connect with me, there's a QR code. It goes to my Twitter, my X, whatever we call it these days. I'm still getting up on Mastodon over there, so there's my handle there. You can email me at my Proton mail, On Meshtastic, I'm there. On Signal, I'm poiupoiu01. Or, this is, yes sir, hardware.
How long have you been adminning WSUS for your org?
Not for my organization, for my network that I manage, because my organization is large.
Okay.
I have been doing this 3 or 4 years, and before I found this WSUS package publisher, I was thinking, okay, this is cool, but this is going to be a pain in the butt. The WSUS import-export manager. Okay, we could do this, but oh, this sucks. How am I going to do this? Because I kept running into that. I have an update that I've approved, but I have deleted a file, and I don't want to have a 5 terabyte system just sitting there with updates that never get used. How can I clean that up? I want to make this efficient. So to answer your question though, I've been doing this for about 3 or 4 years now, and I still manage it here and there. I still act on it occasionally, but I have a couple people that I work with that I've specifically tasked to do all these WSUS package publisher updates for me. And then, so like I said, I'm on Signal, or the best part about PhreakNIC is there's maybe 150 people here. Just pop up and say, hey, got a question for you. So, and with that, oh yes sir.
What other solutions have you tried independently?
So I've looked into, even so far as doing a lot of PowerShell administration, like with invoke PS shell or PS invoke command. I mean, I've looked into kind of Linuxing it, where using some remote shells with PowerShell to do that. Had mixed success here and there. It wasn't as flexible, I thought, and it was janky a little bit. But overall, we still need WSUS. We still need to do cumulative updates. So, all right, we need to download all of these things. Now, for Windows, the actual OS, it really isn't that bad, because Microsoft went to the cumulative updates, what, 3, 4, whatever, how many years ago it was? So we download the November 2025 cumulative update, and that includes even the April 2024 updates. You know, that's not a big deal. Office, oh my goodness, Office sucks. Every update doesn't supersede it. Every update is unique. So, if you have, again, Office running in a standalone environment, you're going to be going through, all right, well, let me do a vulnerability scan. Oh, I need to download this update, this KB, this KB, this KB, this KB. And you're going to be sitting there for a day, a solid day, hitting the Microsoft update catalog. I need to type this KB number in, download it, okay, sneaking it across, and go from there. Whereas if you have WSUS already in place, and you say, I want to include updates from Office 2016 or Office 2023 or whatever they're up to these days, or Office 365, because that's the new fun thing. All right, I'm just going to include all the updates. All right, so now for my clients, my Windows clients, I say, just point to the WSUS server. Oh, hey, you have Office? Cool. Brrr, downloads all of it. I don't have to manage it. I don't have to deal with it. So, but getting back to your question of other patching methods, like I said, I looked into doing some janky PowerShell stuff. I've looked into SCCM. I've looked into Patch My PC. I've looked into a couple other things. They all use about the same concept of using the WSUS API. This method that I'm showing you now costs nothing. Outside of the initial WSUS server license, it doesn't cost a thing. The import-export manager is on GitHub. The WSUS package publisher is on GitHub. So that's why I was like, okay, we can make this work. So, to answer your question, sir?
Yeah, very cool, thank you.
You're very welcome. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned in the beginning that WSUS is deprecated and Microsoft is basically saying, you're just going to use Azure eventually.
Yeah.
But is that going to work for someone in your position, managing all these offline machines, or are you going to be forced to find completely different alternative in 5 years.
So the question is, what happens whenever WSUS is truly removed from the server? In that case, I don't know what I'm going to do, because there are enough standalone networks that Microsoft should notice. There should be some kind of option. There has to be an option, because otherwise we're right back at square one of downloading every executable, every KB, and plugging it onto, sneaker netting it from a hard drive onto a network server, and then using scripts to do all the things. Is that Microsoft's way? No. They want to have everything. So I'm not sure entirely what Microsoft's solution is going forward, but like I said, during all of this, WSUS is included in Windows Server 2025. The demo that I did was Windows Server 2025 that you saw. As pointed out earlier, it has callbacks to like the 1990s. If you actually look into it, Office can can open a Word doc. If you allow it, it can open a Word document from like early 1990s. I will say Microsoft is pretty good about allowing for backwards compatibility. So they obviously haven't changed anything in WSUS for 20 plus years, as you have seen with the UI, the single threaded, all that. I'm hopefully, but at that point, whenever they say no more WSUS, we're taking it off, it's not my network to manage anymore, and it's someone else's problem.
That's when you wipe it all and install Linux.
Yes. And Linux is becoming more and more available. Linux is becoming a lot more easy to update. A Debian mirror is a lot easier to manage than WSUS. Because remember, all this, WSUS sucks, but there are ways to make it better and to leverage it. Any other questions? All right. If you have any questions, let me know later. Thank you all.